All right, welcome back to Philosophy and Ethics in Games Unscripted. I'm Josh Bearhart Hawk, and today we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of things, specifically the Philosophy and Ethics in Games series. And I'm going to answer a couple of questions that were posed to me on a on a community post that I made yesterday. So it's been about 24 hours, and I got two good questions from I don't know how many people saw it. YouTube doesn't tell me how many people see the community post, but a couple of really good questions I want to answer. So this will be kind of more of a laid-back, unscripted video. I've been covering a lot of storylines and games and that kind of thing. Gotta put this down. My knuckle was getting burnt on the cup there. But I've been breaking down The Walking Dead specifically. I was gonna cover The Wolf Among Us in this video, but I decided instead to talk about the Philosophy and Ethics in Games series, particularly because I feel like that series has been confusing. I don't know if that's the right term. I think that there has been some confusion around what that series was supposed to be. So I want to kind of unravel that and unpack that a little bit to clarify and maybe, if this is the first video you're ever seeing of my channel, maybe you'll go watch the Philosophy and Ethics in Games series after watching this and understand a little bit more what I was trying to get at with those videos. So if this is your first time here, the Philosophy and Ethics in Games is my main series here on Lost in Games. We basically go through and break down the stories and characters and stuff like that in some of our favorite games. And to this point, I have covered The Walking Dead, Wolf Among Us. We're working on Red Dead Redemption right now. We had Firewatch. I have a video out there that's technically part of the series that covers Detroit Become Human, but we're going to be covering that game in a few weeks. Don't wait. It'll be here. But so when I initially started it, it's funny because it was actually started a couple of years ago on another channel that I have, where I wanted to kind of break down. There are a few things that I'm passionate about. One of them is philosophy. The other two are history and storytelling. And so over the course of my YouTube career, I've done different things with various aspects of that. And one of the things I thought would be really cool to do when it came to philosophy was look at video games and break down some of the games that I was playing over on Twitch back when I was streaming on a regular basis. And so I started with Fallout 4, and I went through and I did a couple of different breakdowns of Fallout 4, and then I jumped into Red Dead Redemption 2, and I did a couple of breakdowns of Red Dead Redemption 2. But the difference being, between now and what I was doing back then, was they were overall overarching kind of concepts, and I didn't really have a lot of footage to go with them from the games because I would just basically record myself walking through the games, maybe use a little bit of footage from my streams. So I didn't really have a lot of stuff that I was doing. It wasn't as organized, I guess is the best way to say it. So, and those videos didn't really do much. They didn't really take off, and they just kind of fell by the wayside, especially because a lot of the videos on my channel at the time that I was doing were very heavy into history and storytelling and that kind of thing. I was writing horror stories. I've got a whole bunch of short horror stories that I've written. I actually have a book out full of short horror stories that I wrote, as well as a couple of other books that I've got sitting back there on the shelf. Maybe I'll talk about them if there's enough interest at some point. But so I kind of got lost in the sauce with those. And earlier this year, I'd actually been through quite a bit. Last year was a little bit rough. This year hasn't been much better overall, with a couple of exceptions. So my son went through surgery back in January, and it was a situation where we didn't know what was going to happen, basically. And he wound up coming through it all right, and everything worked out for the best. But at the same time, I was starting to think to myself, I really want to do something. I've been chasing this dream for a couple of years, and I want to do something that is going to help propel me. Do some bigger and better things. Specifically because of conversations I had with him while he was in the hospital and that kind of thing. So I decided to kind of revive the Philosophy and Ethics in Games series, bringing it to this channel this channel used to be a it was a channel where my wife and I would go sit in cemeteries and talk about random topics. I've still got all of those videos private, but that was the original intent of this channel. So I figured, and it hadn't really gone anywhere else. I was like, well, okay, we'll put the philosophy and ethics in gaming out on this channel, and we'll kind of see where it goes. I had a couple of other things. I had actually written an entire video for the Elder Scrolls Online that I was going to put up, that I wound up scrapping because the Walking Dead series took off. Now, when I started back in February, I was like, okay, I'll write the first couple of videos, and we'll just go through episode by episode, and we'll see what comes. Never really expecting anything to happen. and then it started to take off. And the problem was that I really wasn't quite where I needed to be as far as the breakdowns and what they have become today. So I was breaking down, I was going basically throughout the entire story and being very intricate about things, a lot more intricate than I originally planned on being. And so I was breaking things down, and I was looking at choices from a very kind of black and white standpoint, and trying to say, this is the right choice every time, this is the choice that you have to make. And that was not the best way to go about it, but the style and my way of breaking things down caught on. A lot of people were really enjoying the videos. So over time, I have evolved, I have changed in the way that I approach these things, because my original intent behind them was to break down the stories, but do it in a way that makes sense, and do it in a way that, from a philosophical standpoint, you're asking the questions, you're trying to figure things out, you're trying to learn. And from an ethical standpoint, understanding the why of the ethics behind certain choices and certain storytelling devices and mechanisms. Things like in Red Dead Redemption, what we're talking about, whether or not, the Vanderlyn gang is really evil, or, that kind of thing. And part of my problem, other than just being the black and white with the ethics thing, right, was I think that there's a fundamental view of philosophy out there. If you have majored in philosophy, if you have taken a philosophy class in school, for instance, you might be familiar with names like Descartes or Plato or Aristotle, Socrates, a lot of these thinkers, these great thinkers from history. And for a lot of people, that's what philosophy is. It's looking at the great thinkers and looking at some of the concepts they came up with, and maybe dabbling in some thought experiments. But overall, it's it's dry and it's boring for a lot of people. So when a lot of people hear philosophy, they hear dull, they hear boring, they hear high society. They probably picture a bunch of old white guys sitting around in a cigar room drinking scotch and talking about the intricacies of Plato, right? But that's really not what philosophy is. Philosophy is all about asking the right questions. It's about searching for the why. It's about understanding what we do as a society, as individuals, as groups, and how we can get better at the things that we do, and how we can treat each other better, how we can look at situations from a different perspective. And so for me, when I look at a video game, when I look at something like The Walking Dead, yeah, you're never going to probably be in a scenario where there's zombies up and walking around, where the world has come to an end and now you just have to kind of scramble and just chaos everywhere. But there are things that you can learn from the different aspects of that game, from the different scenarios they put you in. There are thought experiments that you can do by trying to figure out, how would you handle a situation, maybe not necessarily where you have been tossed into a pharmacy with a group of people that are arguing about whether or not you should even be there, but how would you best go about calming that situation when one group feels threatened by another? Because that does happen in real life. Specifically, I could think of, just off the top of my head, as I used to do urban exploration, that kind of thing. Urban exploration groups always run, you find videos all over YouTube where they're running into each other, or, sometimes chaos erupts, sometimes you have homeless groups and that kind of thing. And if you can find a way to settle issues and calm the situation down and understand why it's important to calm a situation down like that, it can really help out a lot. And especially when you look like America in this day and age, everybody wants to fight and argue and complain about every single thing. And there are some things that are just universally right and wrong. There are some things, you know, human beings in general deserve rights, deserve to have equal rights, deserve to be treated with respect. But there's a lot of nuance in how we go about that. And there's a lot of things that we can learn from these games, like even Red Dead or Detroit Become Human, some of the situations that we're in those games, to help and apply those things to our actual lives. So the idea behind the philosophy and ethics in game series was really just to kind of help people to find a way to deal with problems or deal with situations in their real lives by using video games as thought experiments to learn from those experiences without actually having to go through them personally, hoping that you get to learn before you have to go through them personally. So if you ever wind up in a situation where you have to calm a situation or where you have to figure out what to do on a moment's notice, if you have thought through it, if you have been through it using a game, you can use that to help yourself in this situation. So that was my original intent, and specifically using games because for a lot of people, philosophical concepts in general, ethical concepts, moral concepts, come from a religious place or even a political place. And those things are very difficult for a lot of people to talk about, because if I challenge somebody on their deeply held religious beliefs or on their political ideology, for a lot of people that is attached to their sense of self. So challenging those things, it's very difficult to get across to people. But if you look at a game and you look at a situation in a game, most people don't have a sense of self when it comes to, they might connect with a character, but they don't see themselves as the character. So it's a lot easier to talk about these things through the eyes of a character, through the perspective of a game, than it is to do through a religious or political background. In games in particular, because, there's books and movies out there, and books and movies are great for this kind of stuff to a point, because a game actually puts you in the shoes of somebody and lets you make the choices. You're not just a bystander sitting down reading a book or watching a movie or a television show and complaining about what you think that the character should have done. You're actually doing it as a character. So that's a big reason why I picked games as a medium, because that's the best way to connect with people and the best way to really put people in the shoes of these characters and let them make decisions, and hopefully be able to apply those lessons out in the real world at some point if need be. And it really, especially coming into this year, I really wanted to do it. And I'm glad that it took off the way that it has to this point. I'm hoping that it continues to grow. But a big reason why I did it really goes back to the political situation in the United States right now, because temperatures are so high and people are so quick to judge, and they're so quick to jump on each other and point out how each other's the bad guys. And it's so hard. It gets muddled, and instead of taking the time to really back things down and look at the core reasoning behind some of these issues that people have and the ideologies and beliefs that these people hold, if you don't do that, it's just shouting over each other and yelling at each other all the time. And that makes the world a lot worse. And what I want to do ultimately is make the world a better place overall. I'm hoping that by the time that my time on Earth comes to an end, I want to have left a positive impression on somebody out there who can say, hey, he made me think a different way, and it actually helps me become a better person. And I don't know that that's ever necessarily going to be a thing, but it's a goal that I have. It's something that I would like to see happen at some point. Hopefully I'm around for a while longer, but at some point in the future, I'm not going to be here anymore. And I would like to leave that behind as a legacy, to leave the world better than I found it. This is the best way to put it. And that gets me to the couple of questions that I had from people. The first one was Moemi. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Moeime. I'll put you up on the screen here. It says, "Hello, Josh. I took a brief look at your website and saw that you first started your creative journey by becoming an author. My question is, what led you from creating stories to analyzing video games? Is there a correlation there? Very interested." So, I don't know how clear. There's a little bit of a correlation. Like I said, I'm passionate about storytelling. I'm passionate about history, and the writing and stuff stemmed from that creative urge that I've had for my whole life, and I never had an outlet for it until the past few years when I started on YouTube, which then led me to start writing. And I still write. I've got a couple of books I'm working on right now. They've been on the shelf for a while because when this all started taking off back in February and March, I really wanted to focus on it because I wanted to capitalize on any opportunity I had. You know, in the words of Hamilton, I will not throw away my shot. So if I have a shot, I want to take it. So I kind of shelved my works in progress, specifically because I write all of my own scripts for all of these videos, and I had it written down. I don't have it in front of me, but it was like 180,000 words as of like August that I had written between February and July, which is like 2 novels, depending on how long, what length of novel you're looking at. And that's a lot of writing. Most of my scripts are somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000 words. And sit down and try to write a 3,000 word essay and see how much time it takes. And so that has taken the majority of my time. Now, hopefully going into the fall, I'm starting to kind of get into a rhythm. We'll see how things go. Some other things I've got going on, we'll see what happens. But there's a couple of books I'd like to get done by the end of the year or early next year. And we'll talk more about those if anybody's interested when the time comes. So hopefully that answers your question. If I didn't, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to talk more about it. Then the other one was actually kind of a back and forth. Taciturn, I believe is how it's said, had initially called out, made some good points about the philosophy and ethics series and where they thought that the issues were with it, which they very good points as far as talking about the philosophy stuff and really more about the ethics being black and white, which that's true. There's a lot of gray when it comes to morality and ethics, and we don't acknowledge that often enough. I've been trying to kind of focus more on that in videos, and especially with the Red Dead series, because there's so much gray area when it comes to the Vanderlyn gang, and I don't think a lot of people really realize the whole nuance that's there. So I'm trying to get that across as I cover that. But further down, we had a couple of responses, and they finally got around to asking the question, what was your favorite game when you were a kid, teen, and do I plan on talking about games from the 90s, 2000s? And so my favorite games, I grew up in the 90s. So I was a child of the 80s, grew up in the 90s. I played a lot of Doom, the original Doom and Doom 2, Duke Nukem. My dad, my brothers, and we played Wacky Wheels. Eventually, into the late 90s, we finally got a PlayStation, and I would play a lot of Metal Gear Solid, a lot of Spyro, Gran Turismo. I loved the original Gran Turismo 1 and 2. I spent so many hours trying to pass the license test on those games. So I loved the 90s as far as that's concerned. And those are the kind of games. There's not necessarily a philosophical or moral aspect to those games, but I would at some point like to try to cover some kind of nostalgic angle from those games and talk about them from my perspective of playing them as a kid growing up in the 90s. And, I don't know. I don't know that I would be able to find any others that I had. I mean, Metal Gear Solid could maybe do philosophy and ethics type of thing, although I'm not sure what I would cover with that. It was a great story, but and realistically, I didn't play a lot of controversial games or a lot of games. I could probably talk about things like Grand Theft Auto when it came out and that kind of thing, and maybe at some point I will. I don't know for sure yet where we're going with all of this. The one thing I do know is that I want to have the philosophy and ethics and games series be the main series every single week. and that's going to be my goal going forward. Is I want to have that series out every single Thursday. Like I said, covering the rest of Red Dead. Detroit Become Human is going to be coming up. I'm planning on doing probably the Telltale Batman series at some point. Life is Strange. I've got a few on the list. People have been suggesting videos or games for months, and I'm just kind of trickling through those games. And then as time permits, and as the seasons go, we'll see what else I could throw in there. Realistically, a lot of it just depends on how things go on the channel here, because right now this is taking up a decent chunk of time in amongst a lot of other things I've got going on in my life. My oldest daughter just graduated from basic training last week, so we were visiting her for that. My other two are junior and a sophomore in high school. One's playing football, one is in the FFA and doing that kind of stuff. So their schedules are hectic. My wife works full time. This is my full time job, as well as I'm in school full time. So there's just a lot going on. So you can understand that, like, while I want to focus on making sure that video series gets out every single week, I don't necessarily know what else I'll be able to do on a regular basis consistently. The Friends or Foes series, I haven't done that in a while. I'd like to get back into that. There's several characters from The Walking Dead and Wolf Among Us and Red Dead now that I want to cover. There's so many things I want to do. And right now, there's just not enough hours in the day. And I've got to do things to make sure the bills are paid and that kind of thing. So there's just not enough hours in the day at the moment. So we'll see how things go in the next few months, and hopefully, if you're still around, thank you for I'm assuming subscribing at this point, or if you've been a subscriber maybe. Thank you for commenting on videos, liking videos. Those all really help out a lot. This is something that is still new to me. I'm still trying to figure it out and find my way. I've been doing YouTube for a few years now, and I never really expected it to go anywhere. I always hoped I would be able to get monetized. I would be able to get more than 5 or 10 views per video. And while YouTube has slowed down on showing things lately, y'all are still out there. You're still commenting. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback, and I appreciate that. And even if it's not positive, if you tell me that that you don't like the music, or maybe you don't like you think that something is off or something like that, I'm open to constructive criticism. Always open to that. Not that I'll always take it, but if it is something legitimate that I think would help, hey, I'm open to it. But before we go, there is one thing I wanted to talk about, because I'm not really a big YouTuber or anything like that, so I don't really get a lot of companies reaching out to me. But recently, I did have a company reach out to me, and I wanted to share this because I was kind of interested. I thought it was kind of cool. So you've probably seen them advertise, I'm sure, at some point. Manta Sleepwear, Manta Sleep Masks. They reached out to me, and they were like, hey, we'd like to send you a sleep mask to try. And if you like it, we can give you a discount code for your viewers, for your whatever social media site you want to share it on. And all we ask is that if you do like it, that you would talk about it and share it. And I've had the mask. It arrived last week while I was while I was away. I was kind of disappointed. FedEx messed the whole thing up, but I have had a chance to try it since I got back. And I'll tell you what, this is actually really cool. They sent this mask, so they've got earbuds that come with it, or earplugs, I guess, and then a little carrying case, travel case, and then the mask itself. And I did not know what to expect. Here's the deal. I stay up late a lot working on videos and stuff like that. I'm kind of a night owl. And I take a nap in the afternoon. Usually I'll sit back in the chair here. I have weird work hours. So, but it's hard for me to sleep when it's light. That's one of the biggest gripes that I've had since starting doing this kind of stuff. And I always was like wanting to get some kind of a sleep mask, but I just never bothered because I was like, it's no point. I'm not going to worry about it because I've had sleep masks in the past when I was in the Army, and they don't really do well. The light gets in the sides, and it's always a pain in the ass, and it's just not worth it, right? But I will honestly say, I have been using these, and they do a damn good job of blocking out the light. And it's actually a lot more comfortable than I thought it would be. I was actually surprised for what it was. They actually have these like detachable little cups here that go over your eyes, and they detach. You can move them around, and I was fascinated by that. All right. They didn't sponsor me, but they did give me a discount code. I'll put that in the description and the comments down below. I'll pin it at the top or whatever, so that you can, if you're interested, if you want to get a Manta Sleep mask, maybe you've seen them advertised elsewhere and you've thought about it, but you aren't really sure. Um, I would say go check them out, and if you do decide to get one, use the promo code and use my promo code. I don't get anything from it, but it shows them that like I have viewers that are willing to check things out. So, but yeah, I made a commitment to myself when all of this years ago, actually, even before I got anywhere on YouTube. I won't talk about or I seriously doubt that I will ever get a full sponsorship or anything like that, because my biggest thing, the first and foremost thing I always look at is I am not going to promote something or talk about something that I don't personally use or like. And if I have a negative opinion, I'm going to share it, and a lot of companies don't like that. So I was kind of surprised. This is the first place that ever reached out to me, and I was like, yeah, sure, it's free. And I was like, if I don't like it, do I have to? And they're like, no, that's fine, whatever. We would prefer you not to talk about it if you don't like it, but like you can do whatever. And so I was like, oh, if I like it, I'll talk about it. If I don't, I get nothing but except for the satisfaction of them being able to say, oh, hey, Lost in Games got their promo code used, So if you decide to get one, it's 10% off that you'll get. That's just something I'm not a professional YouTuber, okay? These are not sponsored segments. This is something that's brand new to me. We'll see what happens in the future. I don't know, but I just wanted to talk about that real quick because it was something that I've been thinking about, that I actually had the chance to actually try it out in the past few days, and I've actually really enjoyed it. I fell asleep this afternoon. I was taking a nap, and the damn lizard was over here scratching at the glass and stuff, but I put the things on, and the sunlight coming through the window, couldn't see it. Didn't bother me, whatever. It was just kind of surreal because I'm not used to having that kind of a blackout on I've used the sleep mask, like I said before, they're like up in the sides and stuff. But anyway, so really all I've got for this video. We're going to have other stuff coming out. We got the next Red Dead video coming out in a couple of days, and we've got more coming out over the next few weeks. I think in the short term, I'm probably going to have just the Philosophy and Ethics series for the month of September. Maybe a couple of these kind of videos sprinkled in where I talk about random things. I'm going to hold off on doing any more Walking Dead or anything like that, just because I think YouTube, at the moment, a lot of people have found my channel through the Walking Dead content. And as cool as that is, it's kind of a problem if they see the Walking Dead stuff and they love it, but then they don't click on the Red Dead stuff, and YouTube's like, oh, well, obviously this video isn't very good, even though it's just as good. It's just a different game. So I think that there's a couple of different things happening there. So I just want to kind of like just push the Red Dead stuff for a while and see, because there's going to be other games coming out. I'm not a Walking Dead channel, okay? I am a philosophy channel. I am a gaming channel talking about different aspects of games. So like, I can't just do Walking Dead all the time. That's just it's not feasible long term. So it might make the algorithm unhappy for a while, but hell, maybe eventually it'll work out. But I want to thank you all for watching. If you've stuck around this far, you are amazing. And chances are you're probably on the list, whichever side I put it on, of the patrons/channel members. You can go over and you can help me out over there, because patrons and channel members actually help me on a monthly basis. I'm trying to save up to buy a new hard drive. I'm running out of hard drive space right now, so I'm trying to save up to buy a hard drive at some point in the near future, so that I can continue to save footage, because I'm running out of space very quickly. But I want to thank you all for watching. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.